it would be really good anyways if Grant takes that step. That takes it over the top to where we're like, all right, this is a defense that can carry a team. Yeah. Right? Last year, necessarily, they carried at some points, but they weren't enough to carry it over 500. That's where it's like, hey, man, if you just get nothing out, if you get neutral quarterback play, just net zero, whatever happens, you'll be all right. Let's switch gears here, and I think there's one player on the defensive side of the ball that I think can change everything for this team if he pans out and is who we thought he was in 2018, and that's Grant Delpit, because I think people forget Grant Delpit in 2018 wasn't just good. Grant Delpit was so good that, like, what Jamal Adams was just there, and they skipped over comparing him to Jamal Adams and went to Ed Reed. They thought he was that good. Like Sean Taylor comps coming out after 2018. He was so good at that position. And here's why this is important. One, we've talked about the deficiency that the Browns have in the interior of the defensive line. All right, cool. Quincy, how do you solve that? How does it not become a problem? Well, it didn't become a problem last year against Lamar Jackson because JOK was able to stay closer to the line of scrimmage. JOK is a tremendous enough athlete to where he can get to Lamar more so than other players can. How can you make sure that's there? Well, Grant Delpit got to be good, right? Because if Grant Delpit is the only safety on this team that can cover more than a quarter of the field, right? Like he can cover about half the field with his speed if he's playing good. That's the only player that has the athletic ability to give you that kind of responsibility. Everybody else, I mean, we've seen what happens when you put Ronnie Harrison as the deep man. Oh, come! Right, we've seen what happens.
Ronnie Harrison's the outside linebacker.
I wouldn't go that far, but he should have he should have given For those of you who play Madden more, you should never give Ronnie Harrison a deep blue. It's basically what we're saying, right? Like he's not deep blue guy. He's definitely great.
You sub him in your nickel packages, and you put him right around the line of scrimmage, like Joe Woods does, preferably.
Yeah, that's what you want to use him as. You don't want to put him back there, but so if Grant is Grant. And he is not just a net zero at the position, which for the most part last year, he had some good moments, had some bad moments. He was a net neutral at the position last year. But if he can be not just a positive, but an impact player at that position, I mean, you try throwing against that, right? You got Denzel Ward on one side. You got Greg Newsome on the inside somewhere, A.J. Green or Greedy Williams somewhere out there. And then you got Grant Delpit over top with John Johnson somewhere in there between. It might not matter because they might have to hold the ball for 5 seconds for somebody to get open. And by the time that happens, ring, ring, chicken dinner, Miles Garrett. So, that's the plan.
Grant Delpit, to me, he had an ankle injury his junior year. But go back and look at him in his first 2 years, man. And that happens all the time out there in LSU. Like, they said the same thing. Remember Claiborne came out, and Claiborne was dope, and he fell off. And then now they got a guy coming out this year. What's his
Derek
name?
Stingley. By the way, think about how cold Stingley was. He was 19 years old as a true freshman 12. Out there. Was the best corner in football.
Best corner. So that's what happens, man. Like, when you're dealing with corners and safeties and stuff, it's a lot of what determines whether or not you're going to be an impact safety is if you have a coach that's creative and a coach that has the heart to let you do what you want. When you go back and watch some of the dudes like Eric Reed and Troy Polamalu, sometimes if those teams didn't play for those players didn't play for those teams at that time, they wouldn't have been as great because it takes a lot to let a guy do his thing. Troy Polamalu was just running around doing whatever he wanted. Right? And it's just like a lot of coaches aren't going to be cool with that. I don't even know how good Jabril Peppers was when he was playing here because I never saw him. It was just like his jersey was clean because he was playing 75 yards outside, deep. My thing is I like a dynamic safety, a safety that can be in the box, a safety that can blitz but got range, like you said, cover half the field and has some ball skills. And Grant Delpit has some of those things. He has those tangibles, right? And if you can get a safety that can play both the run and the pass, that is such a huge part of why people like the Honey Badger consistently still get big-time contracts because they can do both. And I think Grant Delpit is a guy that brings that type of level of And I think he's a better athlete than the Honey Badger, which is saying a lot because the Honey Badger was the Honey Badger, right? He was just taking the ball from people scoring. So I think Grant Delpit and JOK will be the two biggest determining factors of whether or not the Cleveland Browns are going to be a top 1, 2, 3 team.
Yeah, I forgot about JOK. And it's not like I forgot about him as another guy that can be, oh my goodness, this defense could be crazy. If Grant, I think it would be really good anyways if Grant takes that step. That takes it over the top to where we're like, all right, this is a defense that can carry a team. Yeah. Right? Last year, necessarily, they carried at some points, but they weren't enough to carry it over 500. That's where it's like, hey, man, if you just get nothing out, if you get neutral quarterback play, just net zero, whatever happens, you'll be all right. Yeah,
and that's all. And that goes to show you when people, and this is another topic for another day, but people is really down on Jacoby Brissett, like to the point where it's like, oh, like the people are acting like we're going to get 5-6 wins. I'm going to tell you what, if Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb is on their job, and that defense, and you get Grant Delpit and JOK come around, and you got a motivated Myles Garrett that is not going to take no for an answer as far as being Defensive Player of the Year, you're going to have a defense that can, in a run game, that can get you to the playoffs. And I know a lot of people is like skeptical of that, but let's not get it twisted. This team got some ball players, and if a couple people take them steps, they can do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and we're talking about like players who have already showed promise, right? This isn't like old Browns where we're like, man, if Carlton Mitchell can just be a great wide receiver out of nowhere, we'll be all right. Like, no, like Grant Delpit was solid last year. JOK was really good last year. We're not necessarily expecting a jump in JOK's play as much as we're expecting a jump in his responsibilities, right? Like, that's not really a projection. That's more or less a projection on what he's going to do with more time. But yeah, I think Grant Delpit is very important to his defense, and you touched on it. JOK is also somebody who's important because not only does he afford you that flexibility, right? And what the flexibility of JOK affords you is if you want to go in there, right, and have a nickel set with a sub linebacker like a Ronnie Harrison in there, you can get away with that because of JOK's strengths at that position, right? And a lot of the concerns that we had about JOK coming in, well, some people did. I did not. I saw the tape and I was like, brother ain't gonna have no problems, right? Because he plays too fast to be as weak as people want him to be. But we saw he did not have a problem getting off guards, or at least as much as a problem getting off guards that we thought he was going to have. He honestly excelled in the blitz, right? He did not struggle in the run game like some people thought he was going to struggle. He actually was pretty damn good in the run game.
Yeah.
And so once you add that, right, and given that last year primarily a lot of what he did was run game stuff, you start putting him in the passing game where he's a more natural fit. I mean, we saw him cover, not Deontay Johnson. What was his name? He won the Heisman Trophy from Alabama at wide receiver. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Number 6. Devontae Smith. Yeah, he covered Devontae Smith in the slot at Notre Dame. Like, he is legit a really good coverage linebacker and just a solid linebacker, period. Once he gets more opportunity, he's going to become very dominant.
Watch this. And guess what? His dude is I didn't know he was that athletic. Your boy Phillips is running around, bro. Like, I was watching, I'm like, who is that out there running around? He out there. I mean, who's this cat? That's Phillips. I said, now, I mean, he's not JOK, but he's moving around out there. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't know he was moving like that. If you want to talk about athleticism, and if he could put something together where he can stay healthy for like 2 seconds, the Browns have a lot of team speed at a lot of positions that are uncanny that a lot of teams don't really have. You could do a lot.
And I think that's what we talked about last time is why the Browns have struggled against mobile quarterbacks in the past. This is the solution to it, right? If you're not going to solve it in the interior by just plugging up those holes, you have to be athletic at almost every position. And that's what got Lamar Jackson last year, was that they were just too athletic for him at some points for him to get off. He was also injured coming into both of those games. So it's not discount that, right? He had an ankle injury. Lamar Jackson did. Coming into those games, it only got exasperated as he played Cleveland those games and Pittsburgh in between. So we didn't just shut him down. He wasn't healthy. But That's the solution, right? If you're just athletic enough to get to him, no matter where the spot is, it's a dangerous solution, mind you.
I mean,
but
and there's a lot besides. It's a lot besides Lamar. I mean, Justin Herbert is moving around.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes moves around. Josh Allen is moving around. Joe Burrow can move and make plays. I mean, Mac Jones is not a stiff. Like, there's not too many stiffs out here.
You had me until you said Mac Jones.
I mean, until we can come back. Until we can come back in.
You low key of McCorkle Jones stand. Like I see you slip Mac Jones in here an awful lot, man.
I don't like the fact that he put 40 on us last year.
45.
Unacceptable.
Unanswered.
It just
made a fan. He made a fan of you that day.
I remember that day. I think we was talking about it after. You was like, you know what, G. Bush, we gonna burn that film. I don't even think we talked about it.
What do you do? What do you do? He put a 45 unanswered on you, doing nothing but screen pass. What do you do? What do you do? Do you tell him what you got to tackle? Like, what do you tell NFL players at that point? They know they was sorry. They know they played like absolute Duke. There is nothing to teach there. And in the offense, I mean, what coaching was gonna fix the offense last year?
We came in for the planning session at GBQC, and then he was like, we're gonna burn the film. We're not even gonna discuss last week. We're gonna move on.
I was looking at the game tape and I was like, well, there's nothing to learn here. Everybody on this team is absolutely sorry for that. Let do 45 straight points on you. This is just embarrassment, right?
Baker threw for 70-some yards.
That was what he ended up with, 71?
71 yards. That's crazy.
I mean, wasn't even the worst game he played last year. Honestly, is it in the top 5? I don't even want to get started on that, right? Because then people gonna get mad, start talking about Baker.
Right, because
all I'm gonna say is, as far as quarterback play was last year, as bad as that game was, wasn't even in the top 5. That's why even if it's Jacoby Brissett for the whole year, bruh, it is what it is. I've seen worse. I've seen worse last year. Talk about wasting a year, Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb. What have we been doing for the last 3 years?
It's a waste of year.
We wasted that year in 2019. We wasted Odell's entire prime. Nobody said a thing.
Everything wasted.
Yeah, it's like, come on, bro. It's football. Either you win one or you don't. Like, just try to get to the playoffs.
We watched Jarvis be stripped of his manhood. He was the dude here. We used to talk about Hard Knocks. It got so bad here that Jarvis limped out of here and took a lower deal to go play for the lowly Saints and Jameis Winston. That's how bad it got, bro.
Yeah, dog. It just is what everybody talks about. Wasted year. It's like, man, then join a list. There's a lot. Brandon Marshall has never played a playoff game. He was a great player. Never did. Damn, too sad. Joe Thomas, Hall of Famer. Never saw more than 10 wins in the season his entire career. Is what it is. Never even came close to really playing in the playoffs except for his first year. That has to hurt too, by the way. That not only was your first year the most successful one, it is the only over 500 year that you've ever had in your NFL career. That has to be frustrating.
Your best playmaker is a punt returner, undrafted free agent from Kent. That's your best offensive weapon. Yeah. And then your best offensive player is a lineman. What? In a world where quarterbacks and receivers are gods, your best player of all time in the new era is a tackle and a kicker.
Here's all I'll say to the people who think we should stop talking about the Browns just because they might not have Watson for this year and they might not be Super Bowl contenders. Brother, I've watched this team when they had Ben Tate. You know what I mean? Brother, I watched this team when they had Terrence West and Isaiah Crowell, and we was legitimately excited about that.
That's the best backfield since
we was bringing up Ernest. We was bringing up Ernest Bynard and Kevin Mack talking about that. Dog, if you think watching a year of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett is comparable to Brian Hoyer leading out Taylor Gabriel, dog, this is still better Browns football than we have gotten since the start say it been since 1999 to 2019. This is still much better than the alternative. People forget that. People forget that.
Jabal Sheard and Paul Kruger.
We had Jabal Sheard out here switching 3-4-4-3 every other year for like his entire career here.
And never put no more weight on. And he was still 265 every single time. Yeah. Hey, remember we had everybody named Bryant? Monty Bryant, Desmond Bryant, every Bryant.
That's what I don't get. Y'all expect me to not care about the season just because Deshaun's not playing or Deshaun might not play this year? Because it's Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, brother. I've watched. I remember getting excited about Brock Osweiler. No, man. Y'all not going to tell us come on now. I just don't understand this. And the Browns fans, we have not been good enough to act this entitled about, what we're going to see this season.
And then,
we have not.
And with the guys we had, Mitchell Schwartz, he just became an all-pro every year.
Yeah, dog.
We had Jordan Poyer when he was just a special teams dude.
I promise
he's just good.
Yeah, to Browns fans who are whether they should watch this year, this is all I'll say. I promise you this is going to be much better than 90% of the Brown seasons that you have watched in the past. And now, honestly, if Deshaun gets the year, now you don't even have expectations to worry about. So now you can legitimately go back to being excited about being 500. Oh yeah, we pulled it out. Wait till Deshaun come back. We ain't going to do that whole thing. So we don't need to be panicking, freaking out, crying in our cars or whatever Browns fans are doing these days, because one or two things don't go right. Because at the end of the day, still one of the best rosters, and we'll probably go down as one of the better teams that this franchise has had since '99 on this team. For all the reasons that we spoke of this weekend, I'm QC. That's GB. This has been GBQC. Y'all have a good one, y'all.